So let's talk about a name that's behind two totally different but, equally revolutionary creations. This is a tale of two predators, and I promise you, it doesn't start where you think it does.
On one side, you've got the Predator drone, a true giant of modern technology. And on the other, you have the Predator, an absolute icon of sci-fi horror. Now, at first glance, you'd think this story starts with one man, Abraham Carem, the creator of the drone. I mean, they called him the founding father of UAV technology. Carem's work, as The Economist put it, completely changed the game. His story is incredible, from building model airplanes as a kid to designing the literal eyes in the sky. It's a fascinating tale of pure engineering genius.
But this story, it's not about the sky. Nope, it's about the jungle. Because in 1987, another predator, a much more visceral one, stalked its way into theaters. And its creation is one of those legendary Hollywood stories of near-total disaster.
That's right. The iconic creature that we all know and love almost didn't happen. The entire production actually ground to a halt deep in the Mexican jungle because the original monster, it was an absolute unmitigated train wreck.
So the studio, Boss Film Studios, was hired to build a creature from a design that the director and producer had already signed off on. But, what looks cool in a drawing doesn't always work in reality. And bringing this thing to life turned out to be, to put it mildly, a huge problem.
Okay, let's break down just how bad this was. So the design had these backward-bent digitized legs. That meant the performer, who was a young Jean-Claude Van Damme, by the way, he couldn't actually walk. He had to be dangled from wires like a marionette. Now, imagine trying to do that on the muddy, sloped ground of a real jungle. It was impossible. Van Damme himself hated the suit, and he said the head looked goofy. The whole thing was a bust.
You can just feel the frustration in this quote from Steve Johnson, one of the artists who actually built the original suit. He saw the problems from day one, the impossible legs, the head that just didn't work. He told them, but they moved forward anyway, and pretty soon production was shut down. The movie was in serious trouble.
So with the production basically hemorrhaging money and time, they needed a miracle. And that miracle had a name, Stan Winston. He was a special effects legend, recommended by the film's star, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Stan was brought in to create a brand new monster, completely from scratch.
And here's the crazy part. They gave him just 6 weeks. 6 weeks to design, sculpt, mold, and build a fully functional creature suit that could do everything the original couldn't. Run, climb, and fight for real in a jungle. The pressure was just immense.
So how in the world did they pull it off? Well, it was like this perfect storm of creativity. First, you had Arnold's complete trust in his buddy Stan Winston. Then, Winston sees this painting of a Rastafarian warrior in the producer's office and thinks, hey, those dreadlock-like quills are a brilliant idea. But the last, most crucial piece of the puzzle? That came from a totally unexpected place.
This is it. This is the moment an icon was born. Stan Winston was flying to Japan with James Cameron to promote Aliens, and he was sketching some ideas for the creature. Cameron just glances over his shoulder and casually says, I've always wanted to see something with mandibles. That one word was all it took. Winston started drawing, and the Predator's terrifying, unforgettable face started to come to life.
And this really gets to the core of Stan Winston's whole philosophy. Instead of making things way too complicated with wires and puppets, he went with a practical solution. He believed that if you design a creature that's basically humanoid, a really talented performer can make it real. As long as the suit looks incredible and the performance is there, the audience will absolutely believe it.
So with this killer new design locked in, the next big challenge was finding the right person to put inside the suit. This thing didn't just have to look scary, it had to be physically imposing enough to hunt down a team of commandos led by, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
The contrast here is just everything. Jean-Claude Van Damme, at 5'9", was an amazing martial artist, but he was just dwarfed by the rest of the cast. And then came Kevin Peter Hall. At a towering 7'4", he was a giant. But it wasn't just his height. Hall's training in mime and tribal dance let him create this unique, graceful, and truly predatory way of moving that defined the character. And life on set was just wild. They were shooting in this super remote part of Mexico, so remote they could hear actual gunfire from rebels across the border. They had to deal with poisonous snakes just wandering into camp. And in the middle of all this chaos, they pulled pranks.
Like when Stan Winston's crew filled Arnold's room with giant frogs, only to have his wife, Maria Shriver, be the one to find them.
And somehow, through all of that, the gunfire, the snakes, the frogs, they pulled it off. The movie was a huge hit, and Stan Winston's creature was an instant classic. But what's really amazing is how this hunter, born from a total production crisis, grew from just one monster in one film into the center of this massive, sprawling universe. The sheer depth of the world they've built around this character is just incredible. I mean, in the original movie, he was just the Predator. But over decades of comics and novels and games, this whole rich culture has been developed. They're called the Yacha or the Hishquiten. They've got a history, a code of honor, and a name that's whispered in folklore. The demon who makes trophies of men.
And this line just puts the creature's staying power into perspective. From its debut in '87, to expanding the lore in Predator 2, to crossing over with another legendary alien in AVP, to evolving with the Super Predators, and even going all the way back to its first hunt on Earth in the 1700s with Prey, that design has proven to be just endlessly adaptable.
So that's the story. That's how a complete production disaster gave birth to a cinematic legend. It wasn't the result of meticulous long-term engineering like a drone. It was the exact opposite. It was this perfect lightning-in-a-bottle moment where a near-fatal mistake was fixed by pure creative genius. Which kind of leaves you with a question, right? What is it that truly makes a monster unforgettable?